What's going on, everybody? My name is Phil, and today we're not going to go over guitar demo, not even a pedal demo or an amplifier or anything like that. Today is kind of like a setup video, but it's going to focus on restringing your guitar. Now I know we've probably done it a million times. I'm sure a lot of you are watching this and going, what's this guy talking about? But there are tons of people out there who have never changed their strings, and I have a little bit of a technique that I use that I've been doing now for about 30 years. So it works for me. Hopefully somebody gets something out of this. If not, it'll just make you think, when's the last time I changed my strings and gave my guitar a little bit of love? So today, like I said, we're going to restring our guitar, and I'm going to use one of my Les Pauls to do it. Alright, let's talk about it for a second. Now, for years, I thought all tuning stability rode on how you restrung your strings. Essentially, if you had proper technique, you would have little to no tuning instability or stability issues. I was pretty much wrong on that, and I learned that relatively recently, if I'm being honest with you, at my friction points. So that's really what's going to be, I guess, part 2 and 3 of this whole thing. You have the nut at the top, or your 0 fret, or bone nut, or whatever you have up there, and then you have your bridge saddles. At those 2 friction points, I realized that I didn't have any lubrication on them, and they would just be popping and buzzing, and I'd have a heck of a time getting stability issues. So I found some lube that I really liked. I put those in those parts right there, or in those points, and I've had almost no issues now. So with the proper restring technique and lubing those friction points, that's pretty much all you need to get yourself at least up and going, right? And then you can use my other video as far as your setup technique. If you want to take it that far, you obviously don't have to. But for me, if I put the strings on that way, lube my friction points, I'm usually up and running really well. And again, I'll do a little bit of a mini setup, make sure my string height is adjusted, maybe do a once over on the neck and make sure we're okay, and then I'm back up to playing. And at this point, I should mention a disclaimer. Again, I am not a luthier, I am not a tech, I am just an enthusiast who's been playing for some time, so I feel pretty comfortable doing this. But if you don't feel comfortable even changing your strings, then don't do it. I'm not advocating for you to break something, hurt yourself, break the guitar, anything like that. So if you feel uncomfortable, please take it to someone that really knows what they're doing. Alright, without that, getting that out of the way, let's get into the video. I'll show you my technique and then we'll wrap this thing up. Alright, thank you, everybody. Alright, everybody, my guitar choice today is my early 2000s Les Paul Custom, and I usually start, obviously, by taking off all the old strings. So for me, I like to take them all off. Some people don't. They just like to take off maybe the outside ones, and then I like to give everything a deep cleaning. That's why. This video, I won't, of course, because I'm just going through a string change, but usually I'll do that, and then I'll do kind of a quick setup at the end before I play. So I think now's a pretty good time for me to mention, when I take these strings off, I'm going clockwise. Now, clockwise loosens the strings, counterclockwise tightens the strings, and that's the same way for all of my tuning keys and tuning pegs. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now, take these things off. Alright, so this is probably a good time for me to mention that this piece right here is your tail piece. So the strings are going to go through the back side of that. You see the indentation there, or the recessed part. That's where the ball end of the string is going to go in and bottom out. And then you're going to pull that string all the way down the neck and all the way up to your tuning pegs. That's your tuning keys, tuning pegs. And that's what your string is obviously going to go through. And I like to do a couple small things before then. Give the headstock a quick wipe. And in following with the flow of the strings, I like to put all the tuning peg holes directly in line with the strings that are going to be going through. It just makes life a little bit easier with this technique. Now I should say I usually like to keep things in order, and I go right side and left side. So with your right side being your thinnest, and then your left side being your thickest strings. Right north, thinnest, thickest, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's usually how I reference it. Right side is your smaller strings, your left side is your thicker strings, just like you had the guitar right out in front of you and you're just staring right at the headstock. It makes things a little bit easier for me. I usually do a stagger, kind of like a 5-2, 4-1, 6-3, but for today I'm going to do all of the left side and all the right side, just so it makes it a little bit easier to film, but I don't usually do it like that. Alright, so we're going to start with string number 4 right there. And we're obviously going to take the string, go right through the hole in the tuning peg, pull it in a little bit taut so you're nice and lined up. Now this is where my technique comes in, and you'll see it here in a second. So everything on the left side of the headstock, we're going to turn clockwise. Everything on the right side, counterclockwise. So for me, if I think, oh, left side of the guitar, I loop to the right. Right side of the guitar, I loop to the left. It's opposite. So I get enough slack, roughly about 3-4 inches with my right hand, and my left hand can also help me put some slack in there if I need a little bit more to do my loop. Now this is where the technique comes in. I make my loop clockwise over the top, as you can see, and then I push down with my right finger with that string that I just looped over. My left hand takes a string, faces it up towards the air, then I go counterclockwise to start tightening, as you can see. Now while you're tightening, when you make your first revolution, with your right finger holding it down, it's going to go under your loop and under what's going through the hole, the excess sticking out the top, so it essentially pinches that string. That's the technique right there. And I don't know what that would necessarily be called, a pinch technique if you want to, but for that one, then I get it nice and still with a little bit of slack because I don't want to have full tension. Get everything ready to go, lined up with the nut and with the saddles, and then I cut the excess off. And that's essentially it for that first string. So now we're going to go for string number 5, because I said I was going to go everything on the left side first and on the right side. So that's this one right here. I know usually I stagger, but we're going to go with that one. So we feed it all the way through. And check out the side view on this. This is a good one too, so you can kind of see the technique in action. So obviously I set myself up, do slack, so about 3-4 inches with my right hand. And then I just loop it over clockwise. Perfect. And then with that same right finger, I hold the string down, as you could see in the exploded view. And then I take slack with my left hand up. And then I start tightening counterclockwise. And as you could see, you go underneath the loop and underneath that tuning peg hole. And there you go. You make it a little bit, obviously a little bit taut, but not too much. We don't want to have full tension, of course. And then we could just cut off the excess string once we get a little bit of tension on there. And that is perfect. It's beautiful. We got 2 strings down, and then we're going to start working on that number 6 string, which is the thickest string. So let me get a little bit more on there, a little more tension, and we're going to start the next one here now. Okay, we're going to feed that line right up, or that string, excuse me, right through the tuning peg hole. Same as the other 2 that we had. We obviously have it lined up. We get a good 3-4 inches of slack, and we can also adjust that, fine tune it with our left hand. And then we do our clockwise loop over the top, just like that, and push down. I know it's a little bit harder for this one because it's the thickest string. And we hold it down with our left hand, put the slack upward, and then counterclockwise, we start tightening the string just like the others. As you can see right there, we're starting to get a little bit of tension, which is good to get lined up on the nut and on the saddles. Obviously, you can't see the saddles, but they are all lined up. I know. I felt like this was the easiest way to show it laid down. All right, we get a little bit of tension, and then we can cut off the excess. That's perfect. All right, that looks good. They all look almost the same. Congrats, you already did the left side. Now we're going to repeat on the right side. The only difference on that, of course, is remember if I said earlier, on the right side we go counterclockwise. So you go the opposite direction of what side you're on. All right, now we're going to do the right side, 1, 2, 3, but we're obviously going to put it on 3, 2, 1. So these are your smallest strings, and we're on the right side. So if you remember correctly, when we do our loop, which is the start of the technique, we're going to go counterclockwise. So if you're on the left side, you turn it to the right, which is clockwise. It's opposite. So on the right, you go counterclockwise for your loop, just like that. So we're going to start that one right now. All right, we're feeding string number 3 in right now, going right through that tuning peg hole. And we pull it right through just like the other ones we've done. Same thing. And we're going to get that same slack, about 3 to 4 inches. And then we loop counterclockwise, as you can see. Well, mostly see, of course. Then you hold that down with your left hand, and then you go ahead and obviously take that slack, push it upwards, and then keep going counterclockwise to tighten it. The same thing. Let it go down a revolution, and you keep that string low so it pinches the loop and what you're threading in right now. And these ones are a little bit harder, obviously, because they're the thinner strings. So you can help it out a little bit by pushing it up a hair with your right hand and then tightening some more. And then it'll line itself up. It'll do the pinch point just like you wanted, and it's going to be perfect. And you get it, obviously, in the nut and in your saddles. Give it a little bit of tension, of course. There we go. That's just about right, just about right. And then we cut off the excess. Just like that. And that's perfect. And we're done with that one. We can move on to the next string. Okay, string number 2. We're putting it right through the hole again, just like the others. And we'll get that going. Line it up a little bit. We give ourselves the same slack yet again. 3 to 4 inches. We loop counterclockwise. As you can see from the exploded view, hopefully it gives you a little bit better. I know my hand gets in the way a little bit there, but we push that string down, excess up, and we go counterclockwise. Same thing. You'll see on this one I have to kind of help it out a little bit because it keeps sagging a little bit. As you can see right about there. I'm going to push it up and keep going. Push it up and keep going until we have a little bit of tension, just like the other ones. Just about there. Put it right there in the nut, and obviously on your saddle. Give it a little bit more. We're just about there. There we go. Perfect. And then we're going to cut off the excess. And we'll move on to our last string. All right, you guys are almost there. Here we go. Last string is going right through that tuning peg hole. We get everything lined up. We give ourselves the same slack, 3-4 inches, and counterclockwise with the loop again. There we go. A little bit hard to see, of course. My gnarly fingers are in the way. And we go ahead, start threading, and put that excess up towards the sky. And then we go counterclockwise. Keep tightening, and this is the same as the other ones. And again, this is the thinnest string, or the smallest string, so I like to help it up a little bit. And it gets a nice pinch point. And keep going until we obviously get some of that tension again. Very nice. Put it right there in the nut at the top. And then I'll obviously double check, make sure it's on the saddle properly, which you can't see, of course. And we are just about there. Perfect. A little bit more tension. And then we go ahead and chop off the excess. All right, congrats everybody. You put all your strings on. And of course we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, if you saw my other video, basically with the setup of Les Pauls, at that point, I would probably stretch the strings properly, invest in a decent tuner, and then get everything all tuned up. But for now, I'm going to show you my extra credit step where I lube the bone nut up on top and then the saddles at the bottom. All right, everybody, here's an exploded view of the saddles here as best I could. Now, my weapon of choice for this, and I found it relatively recently, is this stuff, Big Ben's Nut Sauce. So do search on that. The way it's kind of set up is pretty cool, like a syringe too. So what I do, since I have light tension, these things aren't tuned all the way up yet, I pull the strings out of the way of the gaps that they have on the saddles, and I just put a little bit right there in the groove and put the string back. And do the same thing with, I do them with all these, and it's kind of a weird thing for me. I don't know why, but I always go 1 through 6. So I do my lightest and I go all the way up to my heaviest. I don't know. It's just a thing that I have. So repeat the same process. Obviously get in through the grooves. It's hard to see since my knuckles are in the way there, but you can sort of see it in the first one. And then we'll move on to the nut on top. All right, same thing here. I start on the first one. Again, it's kind of hard to see, of course, but pull the string out of the way. You put just a little bit of that stuff inside the groove, and then put the string back on. Again, yes, I would like to have gotten a better top side, maybe bird's eye view of this, but it was a little tough to capture, obviously, because your fingers kind of have to be in the way to pull those out of the way. So you could sort of see it. You pull it out of the way, you put a little drop of this stuff on there, and then you just put it right back in the groove. And then when I'm done with that, obviously in my last one right here, then I just take a rag and I wipe it off, and then I go through that technique of tuning up and stretching the strings. And that's pretty much about it. Let's wrap this up. Alright everybody, that wraps up the Restring video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If not, I hope it just got you thinking, maybe I should restring my guitar. I don't know, maybe give it a good cleaning. But other than that, as you can tell, it's not too hard, it's not too difficult, but with a little bit of practice, it'll be a lot easier. And feel free to keep using your technique or give some suggestions in the comments below. That'd be great too. I really enjoyed that, especially with the last video for the setup. A lot of people had a lot of really good comments and a lot of good feedback, so that's what I really like about this is we can kind of all come together and help each other out. So, again, thank you for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you like what you saw, and we're going to come out with more videos just like this. And I'm hoping to do these setup kind of videos, a little bit of guitar tuning, a little bit of love in your guitar, and of course, also pedals, guitar reviews, etc, etc. So, I know I'm just getting started on my channel, but I'm trying my best to give you as much content as I have, and we'll just keep it coming. So, alright everybody, again, thank you for joining, and go play some guitar. Alright, have a good night.